We're now going to take a look at the console. And the console is a real powerful tool within the Chrome Developer Toolkit because it allows us to interact with JavaScript. We can write JavaScript directly into the console and also use it to help us debug issues in our existing JavaScript files. To show you how the console works, what I've done is created a little example HTML file with some JavaScript. So let me bring that into view. And as you can see, it's a very small HTML page and it's got a JavaScript function inside. And basically it's just going to output some text, and when we click a button, it's going to pop up some more text just below it. Now, when I run this, you'll see that it works fine. There are no errors. But if we do have some errors in our code, the console helps us find these errors. So let me make a mistake here. Let's for example leave out the space there. So if I save the file, do a refresh, and now when I click hit me, then we get the uncaught reference error. New date is not defined. So you can see the console allows you to identify errors within your code. Now, it not only gives us these error messages, it also tells us whereabouts the error message should be. So we can click on this line and it takes us to the sources panel. And from there, it actually highlights, it tries to be smart and highlight the line of code where it thinks the error is occurring. And here you can see it's done it correctly, and it knows that we need a space between the new and date. So that's a pretty powerful feature. Let's put this back in. Click save, do a refresh, and it works again. Now it's not only for identifying errors in our code, we can also type JavaScript directly into the console. So for example, just as in the source file that I showed you, we can type directly here. And it's got autocomplete, which is great because it saves my fingers. So we can do get element by ID. And then we can just key in the actual ID of the ID on our page. And then we can do something. We can set the inner HTML, which is what I did. Or we could just echo out the contents of the ID to the console. So if I take off the trailing period, press enter, then it shows the HTML. Now also, once I've done that, I could right click it and choose reveal in elements panel, and it takes us to that element within our HTML page. Now also, there's a nice function here where we can use the dollar symbol to actually call up elements of our page as well. So I can do this and we'll key in sample, and then that'll bring it up. Oh, apologies, we need to put the little hash symbol. There we go, and it echoes it out just the same. Now if you're familiar with the terminal on a Mac or Linux or DOS in Windows, you can also use the up and down arrows to recall previous statements. So I'm pressing up and it cycles through, press back down and it comes forward through the statement list. Now we're also able to print things out to the console to help us debug our programs when we know that there might be issues, or maybe we want to output a statement to the console to help us work out maybe a counter or something like that. Now before, we used to make use of the alert command to make a little pop-up appear. So for example, we used to do alert, do this type of thing, press enter, and you get the little pop-up. We don't want to be doing that anymore. What you can do is write messages out to the console instead. And to do that, all we would do is console.log, and then we can put out a message. And there you can see it's written out that piece of text to the console. You might think, why bother doing that? Well, you can embed this in your JavaScript code. So whilst you're debugging, whilst you're trying to work things out, you can put these log commands into your code so you can identify when things are running, maybe identify if a certain piece of code wasn't executed because your message wasn't output to the console, and so on. Now lastly, we're not always in the console when we're trying to spot errors. Maybe we don't know that an error has actually occurred. So when we're back in our normal elements pane, tell you what I'll do, I'll bring in this sample code again. Let's put that error back in the code. Choose save and we'll reload the page. When I click the button now, after a refresh, you'll see over here, it's indicating that we do have an error on the page, and we can click that and it actually brings up the console in this pop-up drawer. And it tells us the uncaught reference, and we can expand it for some more information. And just like before when we were in the console itself, we can click on the line of code and it'll try and take us there to show us where the error is. Now before we move away from the console, I'll just say it's a very powerful function and there's lots of API commands that you can use with it. So if you do a search for Google Chrome Developer Tools API, it'll take us to the help pages, and from there you can click on the console API reference and look at all the different things that you can use within the console.